Now, if you made it to this point, congratulations. We're now at the final video in this tutorial series where we are going to wrap up our system by creating a very simple but also powerful admin dashboard. We're also going to be adding our logout feature, and we're also going to ensure that we show the logged in user's name or username on every page of the system. This is important because it gives the user a sense of identity, accountability, and easy access to logging out. It also continues to let us restrict access to sensitive pages of the system using session protection. So let's jump right into it. The first thing we want to do is to more or less build what it is that we want our dashboard to look like. So inside my admin folder, I'm going to add a new file which I'm going to call dashboard.php. And in my dashboard.php, I'm going to create or put in my HTML5 boilerplate. I'm going to give the page a title, which is going to be admin dashboard. And then I am also going to link it to my style sheet. So I go here and I'm going to change this. Since it's outside of the folder that I'm currently in, I'm going to use our, once again, weird little syntax. And I'm going to say CSS styles.css. It's actually styles and not style. So one of the first things I'm going to do is, and I can go over here, and this is currently what my dashboard looks like. I have the link typed in here. And currently, the only thing you will see is that it has adopted this very pale blue, very, very pale blue background, which is part of our CSS styling. So we'll keep coming back to this to see how our dashboard is holding up. So I'm going to go back here to my code, and I'm going to go into my body here, and I'm going to add the feature that is going to show our user their username, and that's also going to show our user the logout button. So in here, I'm going to put in an H3, and that H3 is simply going to say logged in as, and for the sake for the as temporarily, we are going to put in just a name or words. I'll put in this user, logged in as this user, and I'm going to wrap this user in strong tags because we want this to be bolded. So I'm going to put this user in, and we're going to be replacing this user with something, a little later on. And then now I'm also going to go still inside of my H3. Let me just format my document. So still inside of my H3, I'm also going to put in an anchor so that we can have our logout link. So inside of my H3, I'm going to put in my space and then a pipe symbol, and I'm going to put in an anchor tag for an href. And that href is going to be pointing to a file which we're going to create a little later, but we can still put in the link for it, which is going to be our logout.php, which we don't have yet, but we're going to create. And the text for this anchor tag is going to be logout. Okay, let's see if we can view any of those changes. All right, so here we have logged in as this user, and we have our logout button, okay, or our logout link. If we click it, it's not going to take us to a page that exists as yet because we don't have this. So we want to have this later on showing on all the pages of our website. So we're going to go back into our code and we're going to go further Okay, we're going to go further and we are going to build our dashboard. So the next thing we're going to do below all of this, okay, we're going to put in an H1. And that H1 is going to have the title of our entire dashboard. So that's going to be MediTrack Admin Dashboard. That's going to give us our administrative dashboard. So one of the things we want to have, and one of the things we should have in this system is we need to have a summary which shows a count of all of the records in our tables. So we want to see a count of all the total number of patients, the total number of services that's being offered, and the total number of visits. So here, I'm going to create a div, and this div is going to have a heading, and I'm going to uh, put in some text here. So I'm just going to make it going to put in a strong tag. And inside that strong tag, I'm going to say system overview. Okay. Put in a couple of breaks here so that things are aligned and drop down. Then I'm going to have a paragraph, and that paragraph, okay, is going to say total patients, okay, and inside of there in strong tags we are then going to have the patient count. I'm just going to put in just 00 for now. Okay, I'm just going to put in 00 for now, put in a break here, and then I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it a couple times below. So this is going to be our summary area. So total patients, total services, and total visits. Okay, so we're just going to leave this. We're going to replace these double zeros a little later on with something else. Okay, um, and that should be okay for now. So this is going to be, and what I'm going to do is that I'm going to give this div a class of summary box, and that class is going to be equal to summary box. And why summary box? Because in my CSS, I actually have this class as being styled in a particular way. So if I go over to my page and I refresh, you will notice that my summary, okay, my system overview is actually being displayed very nicely in this box here. And these stylings come from the summary box stylings that we have in our CSS style sheet that you can download. Here we go, div summary box that you can download from the description of the very first video in this series. So now we can go ahead and we can actually edit things and make things look even better. So an additional functionality that we need to have in our additional functionality that we need to have in our page, in our navigation is, sorry, in our page is just a navigation or some sort of navigation that our users should be able to click and be able to go to the relevant pages that we have or manage pages that we have. Now we have patients, we have services, and we also have visits. So we need to provide our user with an ability to go to each of these. So below my div, I'm going to put in an H2, which is the heading for quick navigation. And below that, I'm going to create an unordered list. And this unordered list is going to have a list item. And that list item is going to be an anchor or a link which is going to take us to the various pages that exist. So because these pages exist in the same folder, I can simply say, let's say this one will be patients.php, and the anchor, the link itself is going to say manage patients. And again, no problem being a little lazy. We're going to copy this and paste this 2 more times. And then we're going to point to the relevant pages. So this one is going to be services.php. This one is going to be visits.php. And we're going to manage services. And we're also going to manage visits. Okay, so this is our quick navigation. Let's go back to our page and see how all of this is taking shape. And here we have our quick navigation. Let's see if our quick navigation works. I click on Manage Patients and it takes me to Patients. Now we already have a link at the bottom here to go back to the dashboard, so we can click and go back to our dashboard. Manage Services, and we can go back to the dashboard. Manage visits, and we can go back to the dashboard. Now you can play with this and you can, make changes as to where you want these things laid out. You can also play with the CSS and see if you can adjust or change various elements of it. But generally, this actually gives us whatever it is that we need to be able to um, go through our system, navigate our system, and also get a proper system overview of the counts and total numbers of things that we have. So let's proceed and let's give this thing an engine that's going to allow it to show our counts and is going to allow the system's dashboard to give us some useful information. So going back to our code, we're now going to um, populate the areas that need PHP use with the necessary PHP engine. So at the top, I'm going to open my PHP tags. So I'm going to open my PHP tags here. And I'm also going to close it because closing it will tell our system that we have HTML below. And this is where PHP stops and HTML starts. We're going to include, and I'm going to copy this from any one of my other pages. We're going to include our two famous files, which is our connection and our auth check. And this is definitely going to allow us to be able to pull in the necessary information to connect our database and also to verify that we are logged in before we can actually see the dashboard. Okay, so the auth check is going to make sure that only logged in admins can access the dashboard. And if a user tries to visit this page without logging in, then authcheck.php is going to redirect them. Okay, this is session protection. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to fetch our summary counts. So let's go ahead and do that. Now to fetch our summary counts, in order to fetch our summary counts, we're going to have to write a little bit of PHP and SQL code. I'm going to create one variable, and that variable is going to be called patient underscore count. And that is going to be equal to, um, a query that we're going to write, an SQL query that we're going to write. And it's also going to be equal to, um, it's also going to be converted into an array for us. So let's go ahead and write this. So our patient count is going to be a query. So we'll say my SQLi underscore query. And As usual, we're going to pass a couple things to it. We're going to pass our database connection variable, and we're going to pass our statement or SQL statement. So our SQL statement is going to be select, and then we're going to use a function called count, and we're going to count all. So we're going to select, okay, all, but we're going to count them, okay, as, which means, and once you see as, you know that we're going to be giving something an alias, total, okay, as total, because we don't have total in any table, as you know. So the result of selecting and counting all of the records, right, okay, from our patients table is going to be what is going to be stored in our patient count. Okay, now we're not done. We're not done because we're going to get information from running this query. We're going to get information from running this query, but we are not going to, this information is not going to be stored as an array. It's just going to be stored as string information. So we need to turn this into an array. And how do we do that? We use my SQLi underscore fetch underscore the sock, and we're going to wrap all of this, okay? We're going to wrap all of this inside of a inside of its parentheses. Okay, and I think we might need to fix our parentheses in a minute. We might need to fix our parentheses in a minute. So let's go ahead and fix this. So this is wrapping the entire statement. Okay, we have my SQLi query, which is wrapping our, which is not going to be having two of these. We're going to remove this. So it's MySQL query is going to be wrapping the con and selecting count. And I think we might just have one extra that we need to get rid of. And I think that should make it fine. So now we are converting this entire result. And we could also compound, we could also break this down into smaller pieces. But in the interest of making our code shorter, we wrapped this entire thing in one complete statement. And we can do the same thing, right, for service count and visit count. Now, because this is an array and we don't want to store all of the information, but rather we just want to store the total, we are going to use the key, which is total. Okay, so that statement is going to give patient count the correct count for the patient. Let's use this and see if it actually works. So where we would have placed it would have been in the total patients area. So in the total patients area, the only thing we have to do is echo out patient count. So where we have this double zero, we're going to use our shorthand, our PHP shorthand equals $ patient count, question mark, angular bracket. So we're echoing out patient count. Let's see if we get an actual value. So we go back here and we refresh, and right away we see total patients is 4. And if I go into my MediTrack system, you will see that the number of patients I currently have is 4. So that works. So which means that we can now do it for each of our other areas. So let's go in and copy this before we even write the statement. And we're going to paste this here and replace that other double zero here. And we're not going to use patient count for all three. Let's say we're going to use one called service count and one called visit count. So these now are what we now need to go ahead and create. We can copy this and we can paste it a couple times. We can change this to service count. We can change this to visit count. And now we are also going to be changing where we're pulling this information from. We're not pulling all this information from patients. In this case, we're pulling from services. And in this case, we're pulling information from visits. So now when we go back to our dashboard and we refresh, we now see numbers which are originating from our tables. Okay? So what do we have to do next? The next thing we have to deal with is this logout feature and the fact that we're showing this hard-coded this user at the top here, and we don't want that. What we want is for it to show logged in as whoever the user we're logged in as should be. And right now, I think it should be user 7890 or something like that. So what we need to do is we're going to have our session information, and the session information should be available to us through our auth check. So our auth check, once we include it, okay, has our session information. And once we include our auth check, it should be able to provide the session information to any page that includes the auth check. So therefore, I can go to the area where our logged in as is shown, and all I would simply need to do is to echo out in shorthand whatever is supposed to be inside of our session variable. So I can actually use my PHP shorthand and echo out my session variable. So I can say $ underscore session. Oh, I'm botching this up terribly. Session, and the session variable is actually admin. Admin. Okay, so that's our session variable. Let me close my PHP shorthand and save my page. Okay, so this now is going to be displaying for us whoever the user is that's logged in. So when I refresh now, you see that it shows user 7890. And all we need to do now is to fix our logout. So let's go ahead and do that. So logout is pretty simple. And since login is situated out here in our root, we can just create a new file called logout.php. And we're going to do a couple things in our logout. We are going to first open our PHP tags. And inside that or below that, the first thing we're going to do, and we can import our auth check. Okay, we can import our auth check, but remember, logout is not a page that's going to be displaying anything. So all we need to do in this case is we're going to start our session here so it can get all of the session information that's being stored. So we start the session. We are going to destroy whatever session variables that exist. So we're going to say session unset, and then we're going to destroy the session. So we're going to say session underscore destroy. And we're going to put in our semicolon here. And finally, once the session has been ended and the user has been logged out, we want to redirect them to the login page. So we're going to say location, colon, login.php, and can forget our semicolon. And of course, as always, I just like to exit. And this is our logout script. Let's see if it works. So when I refresh this page and I go here and I click logout, I am once again redirected to the login page. And also, if I try to access the dashboard.php, okay, it says URL system requested URL was not found on this server. And that would be the case because I don't have the admin folder here. So that was my error. So I'm going to go here and say admin. In fact, let's just see if we can access services.php, and it does not take me to that file. So I will have to log in. And once I log in, I'm going to see all of this. Now, remember, we said we must show our username logged in as and our logout, okay, on every page. So let's make sure that we have that. So I'm going to go to my dashboard and I'm going to copy this little piece of code right here. I'm going to copy it. And then I am going to ensure that the pages that are displaying, which is my patients. So let's go to the top here for patients. And right inside of my body here, I'm going to paste this and services. And right inside of my body here, I'm going to paste it as well and format. And also my visits. I am also going to go into my HTML here and I'm going to paste it as well. So now when I save, make sure that I save all of my files. Okay, so my dashboard, my patients, my services, and my visits should, okay, show who the logged in user is. We're not going to do it for register, obviously, because nobody would be logged in for register. So let's go back here and let's click on manage patients and we see logged in as. Okay, let's go back to the dashboard. It's still there. Let's go to visits. It's still there. Let's go back to dashboard, services, and we can log out from any page. Okay, guys. So this was the final video in our series, and I hope that this is going to make um, you know, creating systems like these and making sure that, our systems are clean and functional, okay, is going to be relatively easy for us going forward. So you now have a completely fully working, secure database-driven admin panel built in PHP and MySQL. So congratulations on completing this. Okay, and you can feel free to look for different ways or varying ways in which you can enhance this system as you go forward. Thank you.